been in lots and lots of different, in people's careers or whatever, and, like people are like, well, I was kind of treated like shit, so now it's my turn. This is like why people don't want like student debt canceled. Like they're like, well, I had to pay my student debt, so everybody should. And I'm like, cancel it. It's better for everyone. Like it will be even better for you who paid off your school loan.
Yes.
So it's a definitely like old school mentality. And, for the most part, I think people are really okay, but every once in a while it's just like, whoa, like there was one situation where we were surfing and this guy like totally dropped in on my friend, and then he came out and started yelling at her, you dropped in on my wave. And I was like, actually, you dropped in on her and you owe her an apology. And then he like stormed off. And then like 35 minutes later, he like went over to her and started talking to her. And then he came over to me and he goes, you know what? You were right. I did drop in on her. And I was like, so you just spent like 40 minutes, like doing what? Like working up the courage to like admit you were wrong? Like and there was zero consequence. Nobody hit anyone. It was just like, he dropped in on her. And I was,
hey, at least he came back.
Sometimes it's frustrating. I know. We were shocked. We were shocked.
It takes people time to process stuff, I think, obviously. It takes a while, like that heart rate. Your heart rate is beating and you should be calm, but it's still beating. It's telling you, I'm still upset, and I think it takes some people a little while to come down, but still, like, we all need to be better. Like it's really not good.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like with my work and like I'm in school now again, like my job, like I literally, can you hear me?
Yeah. We're good now.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. So like with my work and I'm in school again, and like, I'm like literally never going to know everything about my job because it's impossible. Right. So there's the knowledge that we know, and I can try my hardest to like keep all that information in my head. But like, I know I'm always going to be learning. And for me, it was a realization that I came to later in my life. And it took me a long time to be comfortable with, like, being wrong is totally fine. Asking for help doesn't mean that like you're weak or unprepared or whatever. And for me, it's like very similar to surfing.
So I wanted to also discuss quickly, like not quickly, but I wanted to also unpack, like, what does your husband think of you learning to surf? Because, I have seen many friends who have learned to surf as they've gotten older, as, in more mature years. And they, they change their lives. A lot of their whole lives change radically because they become so obsessed and dedicate so much more time and energy to surfing. And it can sometimes create some issues with some of the couples. And, I'm reminded of, I went and saw Bill Finnegan speak at Pilgrim once. And at the end, this husband came and said, my wife learned to surf. And a few years ago, and I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like I've lost someone and I don't know how to relate to her anymore. What can I do? And it was like, holy moly. And I felt for the guy. Like, it was like he lost someone to a cult almost, So I was curious.
Well, it kind of is a cult.
It is. So,
well, I'll tell. It's interesting. So he has also surfed a little bit with us. Like we now, like, there's enough boards we can all go together. Nice. And my kids are teenagers, which also really helps. Like, if my kids were little, there's no way, because when I go, I'm gone for like half the day. Yeah. So, I mean, even now with them being teenagers, they're like, oh, you're going surfing again. But my husband really likes to bike, and he goes on really long bike rides. So he also has a sport that's like
Is he
totally
like the
separate,
proper
and
souped up? He's got the full bike and everything.
he started out biking back and forth to work because he hates the train so much. And then so like when he tore his Achilles, like it was sort of this
Devastating.
decision, like, do you just let it heal or do you have the surgery? And if you have the surgery, the likelihood of it re-rupturing is much lower.
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't, like, I bike to
Yeah.
work. So slowly over the past like 2 years, there's been like more Lycra, and he's got like a whole winter kit, like, because he bikes to work year
I'm like
round. But
converting
now he
into
goes,
that myself. So I feel that
yeah,
myself even.
yeah, like like he looks like one of the Incredibles, like when he goes out now, because he's got like his tight pants and he has like everything's either like neon or
Nice.
reflective. And he's got his little booty covers now. And even my son has started getting really into it. So now they go on long rides together. They got a thing to drop the bike into so they can do like indoor
Nice.
cycling with one of those apps and stuff.
Ah,
And so they have, he has his own thing. But like whenever we plan a trip ever
I know.
again, but like all the trips, I'm like,
Surf.
can we surf there? Like, I'll do other
Yeah.
stuff, but like, can we surf there? So it's, there was like a point in my life where I was like, we should go to like all the national parks. And I'm like, but they're all on the inside of the country and I need to be on the edges of the country.
I know.
So,
My poor wife has to deal with that too. It's like, okay, always got to be near surf,
yeah, yeah. And I love the beach in general. Like I love like, like beach lifestyle, and there's lots of places that have beaches, so you can really go all over the world. And but it's, yeah, like, will we ever go to the Grand Canyon again? Not so
It
clear.
depends on where the next wave pool is built.
Yeah, exactly. I know. There's my husband's English, and there's a wave pool out
My brother has
there.
surfed
And
that. It's great, he says. You would love it.
so wait, I listened to the Jack
Yeah.
London, and you have a brother who lives in
Yeah.
England, and he has an
Yeah. He's been
accent.
there for, almost like 15 years now.
But like, do you constantly make fun of him for having the
No, because
accent?
when I lived with him for a little while, I had a bit of an English accent. And then when I lived with the Aussies in London, it was a full mess. And don't forget the Scottish guy too. Oh gosh, it just
Yeah,
really was
yeah.
a mutt
Because I was like,
of a
wait, is this
accent.
guy his brother? Like, how does he have an accent? I'm so confused.
That's one of the
So,
first comments we get for Sunday Joy is like, you guys are brothers? Like, what?
yeah, I was like, were you like separated really early or something? Like, one of your parents I had a whole story. Your parents got divorced. One went to London. You stayed here. The whole thing.
No,
But
I wish no, it's not that dramatic.
but yeah, so when we like the next time we go to, like, I've been to Cornwall, but I didn't surf there because I didn't surf at the
now when you go
time.
back, it's like,
I will do it.
it's
Yeah.
awesome surfing there, especially when the tide is lower. You have this long whitewash, you could get really long, like perfect for just building confidence kind of waves.
Yeah.
And that tidal shift is so crazy. It makes it feel like every half hour, you're surfing a different spot. It's really, and it's the most beautiful coastline.
Yeah. My husband's family every year went there for vacation. So he grew up near Manchester, and they would drive down, and, the water is so cold there that I couldn't believe it. Like, people just swim in wetsuits there.
It's hilarious how hardy the English are. It's like, I remember,
Yeah.
like, it'd be rainy, nasty, windy weather coming out of the water, and there's like a whole family with wellies and their raincoats, and they have all the gear, and they're just going for a nice little hike on a rainy day.
No, I know. We would go to the beach. It would be like cloudy, windy, spitting. They bring like a flask of tea and like a windbreak, and they're like, "We're set." And I'm like, "This is not the beach.
No.
We should be inside." But I also partially grew up in Maine, and the water there is really, really cold too. So, and also very, like, the area that I lived in was also very tidal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's cool. Those beaches are cool
Oh, I love
to
rock
hang out on
pools.
and surf
Rock
and
pools
whatever.
are really fun to
Yeah.
play in, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
But
so I want to switch gears here. You also, registered nurse in this past year must have been kind of fun. how,
yeah,
how can
it's been a blast. It continues to be a blast.
how have you been dealing with this? Like how difficult has it been for a lot of our listeners who may we have listeners all around the world like who may not be aware of like how intense it was at the peak, particularly.
Yeah, so since I work in labor and delivery,
Yeah.
we are like we're protected as nurses because we work in a specialty. So they're
Yeah.
not going to like pull us to
Yeah.
work somewhere else
Yeah.
because there are always going to be people who are having babies.
Yes.
And so they can't strip our unit of
Yeah.
staff to staff another unit. But at the beginning, when it was like really horrible and like the nurses they were telling us like not to mask.
Yeah.
And we were handing out, like, we were getting donations of masks to give to our patients because we were like, because the whole thing with medicine and the masking, the reason why at the beginning they were like, don't mask is because when you work in healthcare, you put on a mask because you're sick.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you had the flu
Mm-hmm.
and you were walking through the hospital, we would ask you to put on a mask because you're the sick one and it like contains
Mm-hmm.
what your illness. And so at the beginning, we weren't testing people universally. It was totally based on symptoms. We were told that if we wore a mask, we could face disciplinary action.
Wow.
We were told that the patients didn't need to mask. So that's why I was like, well, let's mask them because I don't think that we can get fired if somebody voluntarily puts on a mask. So we were trying to mask them. And it was horrible because we had really, really, really sick people. And, babies, if you were getting put on a vent, your baby was being
Oh my
delivered.
gosh.
So very, very young babies being born and very, very sick parents. And it just sucked. And a lot of my colleagues got sick too. So that was the other part. So then, we're down staff. They can't come, they're sick. They can't come in. So we're all like working overtime and it just sucked. And it felt like my institution, like it was definitely like a tale of two cities. Like anesthesia all got masks, like N95s right away because they're like in people's faces and they might have to intubate somebody. So that makes sense. Then like the OBs start showing up with masks and we're like, hey, where'd you get those? And we used to have we have operating rooms on our floor. So we used to have masks and N95s all the time, but then they were all taken away. I mean, we didn't even have hand sanitizer at one point.
That's crazy.
So
what time period was this? Would you what like month were we in?
It was like April,
wow.
May.
Whoa, that was like when everything was going crazy and we knew about the masks too. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, like March was like
it was wishy-washy March, but April is when it started to be like, oh.
Yeah, and then they started being like, oh, so that's when we got like, okay, you can we'll give you an N95 if you have a positive or a symptomatic patient, but then they still weren't testing people. And so it was just like stressful because like they call you a PUI, a person under investigation, if like you are symptomatic or like you have a test that's pending or something like that. So like I got a patient once and she had already had her baby and they were like, she's kind of a PUI because she was like complaining of symptoms, but they were kind of like a couple days ago, So one of the things that you do after you have a baby is that you have to get up out of bed and go pee.
Yeah.
Or try at least. You don't have to actually pee, but you got to get up and we have to walk to the toilet. And a lot of times people pass out when they sit on the toilet and go to the bathroom. So,
God.
Me and this woman, we get up, we're walking to the